Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 1 of Fear on the High Seas. Chapter 1. Eric. It was a quiet morning at the airport as Eric Moore walked off the plane and into the terminal. He pulled out the instructions that he was given to meet his ride out front. There would be a woman named Cassandra there to take him to the port. Eric was glad that his trip was short, considering he had only flown out of Miami and was now standing inside Lynden Pingling International Airport within the Bahamas. His destination was the port of Nassau. Eric was a newly hired captain for Majestic Cruises, a small tour company offering packages to sail the Caribbean. The last ship he commanded was sold and sent to its beached grave within Alang, India, where it would be scrapped for its materials and metal. For the past year or so, he really hasn't been doing much except lounging on his mother's couch. He needed to get back into his saddle and back out to sea, the place where his heart and soul was meant to be. As he looked around for Cassandra, it didn't seem as if she was anywhere around or to be seen. He was expecting to see a woman holding a sign with his name on it, like you would see in most terminals for welcoming parties. However, there were no signs and nobody that appeared to be looking for a person to pick up. How strange, Eric thought to himself, and started to wonder if there were delays, issues, or maybe some other changes that somebody else might be picking him up. Eric's mind soon caught the sounds of a car blowing its horn and flashing its lights from down the street. As it quickly approached, it seemed to be barreling up the road like it had no brakes or was out of control, when suddenly it came to a screeching halt right before him. As quick as the car approached, the tall driver with short brown hair jumped from the car. He was taken aback a bit and a little amazed by his new morning surroundings. Was this some sort of crazy taxi driver for someone late for a flight? It wasn't until he caught the uniformed outfit of the Majestic Cruises did he realize that this woman might be Cassandra, as he heard her voice pierce the air. Eric Moore? Is Eric Moore here? As she began walking around the car towards the sidewalk, where she eventually reached the proximity of Eric's current standing location. Yes, that's me, Eric replied aloud to her call-outs. As he continued the rest of his sentence, you must be Cassandra, while throwing his bag over his shoulder. Call me Cassie, please. It's very nice to meet you. Please don't take me the wrong way and appear that I don't want to chat, but we are running late, and I needed to be at the pier like 20 minutes ago, she responded promptly and swiftly, while walking over to the car, opening the trunk. Eric placed his bag in the trunk and looked at Cassie. You mean you're late? I just got here. Looking at her, confused. His plane arrived on time, and if not a few minutes early. It was one of the primary reasons why he only flew JetBlue. It was his way to ensure he got to where he needed to be, and on time. Cassie smirked and responded with a response to Eric's inquiry by saying, It was just me, but now that I have found you, I have turned into we. With no change in tone or facial expressions, she continued by saying, as in, we are late getting you to the ship to meet with the owner. I'll explain more along the way. Cassie sighed as they both got into the car and started to make their way out of the airport and to the port. What could possibly go wrong to ruin such a perfect day, he thought. She had been quiet so far, and it would be nice to know what he would be walking into. So are you going to tell me what is going on that has you going from yelling to silent? The port was closing in on them, and it was time to find out what Cassie had to talk about. It would be better to show you than explain. It's not a bad thing. It's just the company told us one thing, and we ended up with something totally different, so we're having to adjust, Cassie said as they pulled into the cruise terminal parking lot. Turning off the car, they both proceeded to get out and retrieve his bag from the trunk. The the smell of salt water hitting Eric as they crossed into the piers. Within the port of Nassau, there were only 4 piers for cruise ships. The first current boarding passengers, and the second was departing. The only pier left with the ship remaining was all the way down at Pier 4. Eric stopped midway down the dock and just stared at the ship that would be his to command. What a beautiful ship it was, he thought to himself. Cassie looked over to him as he looked on and broke the silence. "This is what I wanted to show you. The ship," as she points to the ship ahead. Docked was Majestic Cruises' newly acquired ship named the Majestic Coral. The Coral was a 580-foot-long Caribbean cruise liner which seemed to glimmer within the tropical morning sunlight. The ship was mostly white with a green strip going down the length of the ship. You could tell that this ship had been around and changed hands throughout the years. Eric knew just by looking at her what ship this was. "They bought the Emerald. What's wrong with that?" as he responded to Cassie's question, continuing his enthusiasm by saying, "I know this ship and can't think of a better ship to use for this tour. My God, I can't believe she's here and not lost like the rest," he said, smiling as he took in more of the fresh paint and flags that flew off the masts. "It's not what we were expecting. This ship is old, very old," Cassie said as they approached the gangway. "I get nervous when I'm on board. I feel like it's going to sink any minute. Not the best feeling to have when you're in the middle of the ocean." Eric replied to Cassie and her concerns by saying aloud, "I have a good feeling about her and that it won't sink." Further replying to her, with a smile, "I'm sure the guy driving this thing doesn't want anything to happen to her." Eric inside knew the Majestic Coral was old indeed. The ship was built in 1944 and renamed in 2012 when its former owners stopped their passenger service and sold off remaining ships. The ship really did not change all that much since it last sailed in 2012. A floating museum of the past is more like it. His eyes continued to explore the grandeur of the ship within its restored glory and soon passed through security to go on board. "Let's hope you're right, and the captain knows what he's doing," she said as they both stepped onto the deck. Eric turned to Cassie and simply said, "I know the captain. You won't have to worry," giving Cassie a wink. "Oh, man, and here I thought you were working in housekeeping. I am so sorry, Captain," Cassie said as she was now realizing who she had been rushing and maybe even rude to this whole time. "It's okay, Cassie. I will forgo having you walk the gangplank this time," Eric said, smiling, as to ease her embarrassment. "Let's get you unpacked and settled before going down to the lounge and meeting her. I already had housekeeping bring in your new uniforms. One is placed out and the other is hanging in your closet, sir." "Thank you, Cassie. I can manage from here, and I will meet you in the lounge. I'm sure Miss Ellsworth can wait just a few more minutes." With a turn, Cassie started down the staircase to deck 7, and Eric proceeded to find the captain's quarters, which was on deck 8, portside, located right under the bridge. Reaching his quarters, he inserted his key card that was mailed to him upon receiving the position. His keycard opened all areas of the ship, now that all restricted areas had been upgraded to need a card to get into the door. Eric was given 2 keycards in case he lost one. One card was to be on his person at all times, and the other was to be locked up in his safe. And it was advised that no one was to know about the 2 keycards, other than employees. With the upgraded technology that was used on the ship for navigation and communications, the owner decided it was worth protecting, as the computer alone cost a pretty penny. After looking around and finding what he needed out of his bag, Eric proceeded to take that much-needed shower. After stepping out of the shower, Eric began to dry off and change into his new captain's uniform. Eric really prided himself on his appearance, since he had his hair recently trimmed and clean-shaved himself before his flight down. Once fully dressed, Eric looked into the closet mirror just to make sure everything was right. Looking at himself, Eric saw a 6'1", athletic-built guy with deep gray eyes. Running his hand quickly through his black hair to make sure things were in place, he noticed a couple white strands. Great, he thought aloud. My age is starting to show. Noticing the time, Eric grabbed his keycard and clipped it to the inside of his shirt pocket and proceeded off. He would soon be meeting Miss Ellsworth, who had been patiently waiting for him in the ship's Starlight Lounge. Eric studied the ship's layout when he initially applied for the job and knows that it makes it easier if you act and look the part. Making his way down to the lounge, Eric was stunned that they kept the old lounge, just updated the furniture. The Starlight Lounge was the place to be on the ship. The spiral staircase was lined with lights, along with the ceiling, making it look like lights from stars. Looking around, Eric could see Cassie sitting at a table in the back with Miss Ellsworth. Noticing Eric walking over to the table, Cassie stood up and introduced him. Ashley, may I introduce the ship's captain, Captain Eric Moore. Sir, this is Ashley Ellsworth, Cassie said as Eric took Ashley's hand, shaking it. I'm so happy to meet you, Miss Ellsworth, and I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. You could not have picked a better ship for the journey, as they all said down at the table. Eric, thank you, and you're too kind, and please call me Ashley. As Miss Ellsworth paused a moment before continuing, I want to thank you for taking the job. When applicants found out that we had acquired the Emerald before it was to be taken apart, they thought I was crazy. This ship still has many years left of sailing time in her before I go and buy another one. Pausing for a moment, Ashley carried on. Now, let's talk about ship, shall we? We are fully staffed in all areas of the ship. That's a crew of 80 members, and my Caribbean cruise is fully booked, which gives us a total of 300 passengers on board. I plan to run this cruise for the next 3 to 4 years and see where we're at. In between cruises, there will be modifications done to the interior of the ship, including upgrades and furniture. Any questions so far? She asked as she took a sip of her wine. Where are we with the loading of cargo? We are approaching departure time, and I don't want to be late, Eric said as he glanced down at his watch. The Coral was to depart at 2:30. It was now 2. I'll let you get to the bridge so you can get your briefing and get this ship moving. I, on the other hand, will now be disembarking and will see you both in Cape Canaveral for the maiden voyage, Ashley said as she stood from the table, extending her hand once again to take Eric's hand. I look forward to seeing you then, Eric said as they all began to walk out of the lounge. Eric headed for the bridge so they can get ready to depart from the dock and begin the journey up to Port Canaveral, where they would take on passengers and kick off the first of many trips down to the Caribbean. Walking onto the bridge was something else. Most, if not all, the equipment had been upgraded or replaced to bring the ship up to standards. Yet the bridge never changed, still looking the same as it always did. Staff Captain Sophia Smith, along with comms and navigation, were on the bridge and ready to get underway. Good afternoon, everyone. Smith, may I have a status update? We are approaching departure time, Eric said as he gazed out the large front windows. The sea. It was out there waiting for him. Yes, sir. We have finished loading the remaining cargo. All those disembarking have done so, and we are locked and ready to be underway, she said with a slight grin. When the bridge crew was hired and confirmed, Ashley held a virtual Zoom meeting so everyone could meet and get to know each other. Most, if not all, kept in contact until they were to meet together on the ship. Smith